Breaking news. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just said in an interview that China is ready to make a deal with the United States. And markets have responded positively, with the U.S. saying that they're not going to impose 100% tariffs on China starting November 1st. And China is going to delay its rare earth metal export for 12 months to re-examine its relationship. Despite what people say, I don't believe that this is weakness on China's part. It's actually dominance. Here's why. China is one of the largest buyers of our treasuries, and their U.S. Treasury reserves have been taking a dive harder than Terry Rozier.
Off the DHO, and he turned it over.
Yikes. And it gets worse. China holds the keys to our most critical industries, like U.S. auto plants, which are getting ready to shut down if they don't get more chips from China. And you know where the supply chain runs straight through? Beijing. Meanwhile, other nations are admitting that America's dominance as the sole global power is running out. In a shocking interview, Singapore's Prime Minister, Lawrence Wong, said that we are entering into a multipolar world and turbulent times are ahead. With 38 trillion in debt, the gig is up. China's been playing chess while we've been stuck playing Monopoly. But can Scott Bessent and Donald Trump act quickly enough to save America from its woes? We'll see. Let's see what happens next. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Let's go. Bitcoin is up to 113K today, and it's likely responding to the news that China and the US have reached a deal. We're going to avoid the rare earth metal export bans, and we're also going to avoid the 100% tariffs that were going to go on China on November 1st. Here's what Scott Bessent and Donald Trump had to say about the potential deals that we have with them.
President Trump gave me a great deal of negotiating leverage with the threat of the 100% tariffs on November 1st, and I believe we've reached a very substantial framework that will avoid that and allow us to discuss many other things with the Chinese. I think we will be able to discuss them helping us get this terrible fentanyl crisis under control. I think we are going to be able to discuss substantial soybean and ag purchases for our American farmers. I think we are going to be able to discuss more balanced trade. And I'm not going to get ahead of the two leaders, but I think that they will also be discussing President Trump's global peace plan that he's been so successful at, both here in Asia, the Middle East, and now he's looking to Ukraine, Russia.
I think we're going to do well with China. I think we're going to have a deal with China. We meet, as you know, in South Korea with President Xi. I think we're going to have a good deal with China, and they want to make a deal, and we want to make a deal.
And while this sounds good on the surface, what we're seeing is the restructuring of the global financial order. The US was the sole global power, and now we're moving into a multipolar world with the US and China sitting at the top. For the first time in modern history, the United States isn't making all the rules. And the turbulence that is now being felt is this shifting in power, and more turbulence is to be expected.
We are certainly in the midst of a great transition to a multipolar world, a post-American order and a multipolar world. No one can tell how the transition will unfold, but there is no doubt it will be messy and unpredictable because America is stepping back from its role as global insurer, but there is no other country that's able to or willing to fill the vacuum. So we are in an uncomfortable position where the old rules do not apply anymore, but the new ones have not been written. And we must brace ourselves for more turbulence ahead.
Over the last 40 years, while the United States has been printing fake monopoly money on its board, China has been playing chess and building the manufacturing capability and the supply chain capability to supply the world with all of its needs. The turbulence that Lawrence Wong speaks about is not only for countries like Singapore, but for people like you and me. He said that no one's been willing to step up and fill the vacuum, but clearly China has been wanting to step up. And this is why we don't want to make a deal with China, but we need to make a deal with China. When you're sitting on $38 trillion worth of debt and your largest creditor is dumping your US treasuries in the open market for gold, well, you've got some decisions to make. The auto sector would crumble if we didn't have the support from China. And China, knowing that we need their help, has been removing themselves from the dollar system. The US dollar has actually been surpassed by the yuan in cross-border trade settlement with China. The yuan share went from 0% of its market to 53% since 2010. And you know what also started happening in 2010? Central bankers started buying gold in mass. And that's because they knew the US financial system could no longer be trusted. And the major ringleader of gold purchases around the world has been none other than China. Their physical gold ownership has risen by 25x this year alone. This isn't diversification from the dollar. This is prepping for a global takeover. With the US pulling out of global markets, the rest of the world realizes that it's on borrowed time and borrowed money. And that's why this next print is going to be one for the ages. So far in 2025, 82% of central bankers have been cutting rates. In fact, it's been done 312 times. The total global debt is 338 trillion, with the global M2 money supply up to 123 trillion, with supply up by 14 trillion this year alone, almost 12%. And you can expect the number of cuts to be added this week as the Central Bank of Canada and the United States make central bank decisions on rates on Wednesday, with the ECB and the Bank of Japan following on Thursday. The markets are predicting a 25 basis point rate cut at 97%. So with the US knowing that its power is fading globally, with China stepping up to fill the vacuum as the other global superpower in a multipolar world, the US realizes that it has to extend its US dollar system behind the back of China. It can't go through the front door. It has to create a new market entirely. And that's exactly why the United States is rushing to create the crypto capital of the world. That's why the Trump CFTC chair, Michael Selig, says that the United States is going to be the global leader in crypto. This is out of necessity. And the United States is going to say, if you don't want our access, if you don't want our markets, if you don't want our controls, then you can unsubscribe. And you're also not going to get dollars. You're also not going to get access to global markets.
Is that true? Does that apply to the rulemaking process that you guys would have to go through? Are you aware of that order?
Yeah, so the goal is deregulation. The goal is kind of making the United States the crypto capital of the world and also the best place to do business in the world. And part of what adds burden to operating a business or engaging in commerce, right, are these regulations. And sometimes they're very duplicative. Sometimes they're unnecessary. I mean, I think our chairman most recently, talking about a form PF, mentioned that, we should have the minimum amount of disclosure as necessary. You shouldn't be imposing additional burdens where it's not needed. And so we're certainly taking a hard look in line with the president's directive to make sure that all of our regulations are what's necessary, no more than what's necessary. And I think that's really the idea. There are some administrative requirements due to this executive order around deregulatory versus regulatory, and that's something that the commission must consider when it issues new rules and kind of what it can take off the table.
People underestimate the impact that this is going to have on Bitcoin. Because when the rails of this new digital crypto-based system get in place, well, people are going to be able to cut you off and cut other countries off from access to money and financial capital. Some people still call Bitcoin a scam. That's until they're one of the 42 million people whose bank assets were seized by the Iranian government. People have tried to withdraw their money and they go, you can't. What about the HMRC bank in the UK beginning to take people's assets as a way to cover its tax liabilities? That's much easier and simpler in a crypto-based system run on stable coins controlled by the US government. And while this is happening for people in these scenarios, it's going to begin to happen for countries in the global scenario with the United States taking over and owning the crypto rails. And this is why Bitcoin will be adopted. But before we continue any further in the episode, let's thank our sponsors. With our first being Ledn, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. They've issued over $9 billion worth of loans since 2018 to tens of thousands of customers in a fast, smooth, simple, and transparent manner, with fiat hitting your account in less than 6 hours and the application taking less than 2 minutes with no credit checks. That's why they have over 1,000 5-star customer reviews. Your money isn't hypothecated or re-lent out when you put it onto their platform. So if you want a $1,000 fiat loan, you post $2,000 in Bitcoin collateral. They're simple and easy to use dashboards that show your LTV to value ratios at all times, so you're never caught off sides. Like what happened a few weeks ago when there were a bunch of margin loans that were called. Ledn had 0, and that's because they're a place that you can trust with your Bitcoin and your loans. Go to learn.ledn.ao/simply to get started with 0.25% off of a 12.4% loan starting when you go to learn.ledn.ao/simply. The other partner that we work with is the Bitcoin Way, the leader in helping you to protect your generational wealth the right way. Don't wait until the global crypto rails get installed before you know and understand how to remove your Bitcoin from exchanges and to take custody and sovereignty of your assets yourself. Schedule a free 30-minute consultation with their coach. They'll walk you through exactly why you should do this and how you should do this confidently, safely, securely. Schedule a free 30-minute consultation with our team at thebitcoinway.com/simplybitcoin. As we've seen with the US and China, the country or the people who are able to understand real assets, the ability capability to manufacture, that understand industrial processes, that have the control over supply chains are going to be the winners in the real world, not the people who can manipulate the world with monopoly money.
I think it's quite amazing, and I believe it will make it easier to invest in American companies if you're outside the world. It will also bring the markets into 24/7 and fully on-chain, and get all the benefits that crypto technology levies on these traditional assets. So I think it's time to move beyond Bitcoin and meme coins into real world assets that exhibit fundamental utility.
Because eventually, this isn't a board with pieces that don't react back. When you start to demand rents and price increases on the rents, well, these pieces, real people, are going to speak out. And when you go to pass go and collect $200, well, if $200 isn't enough, you're going to start to see riots in the street. And that's exactly what happens as tale as old as time all across the world. The global order is being shaken, and we're not making deals with China because we have the leverage. It's because we need to. We rely on them and they rely on us. There's no two ways about it. But the scales are definitely tipped into their favor, with rare earths controlling the majority of our defense and all of the things that we need to build our future industries, whether it's AI, whether it's solar technology, or whether it's electric cars. We need rare earths, and we need their supply chain and manufacturing capability to do it. In a world that's running less and less on trust, we're going to need a currency, an asset, a collateral that can work and operate trustlessly. And in my mind, that's Bitcoin. What do you think? If you haven't already got your tickets down to the Mining Disrupt conference, I sound like a broken record. I would highly encourage you to do so. We're moving in November and time is running out. But if you still haven't already done so, use the promo code SimplyBitcoin for 20% off your tickets. This is Dante Cook with Bitcoin Simply. Happy stacking.